Hello world, and we are back. My name is Kyle Fischl. This is going to be episode 138 of my poker vlog. For this one, I play a 2-5 session at Seminole Coconut Creek. Before I get into the hands, one quick announcement is that my 1-3 meetup game at Orange City Racing and Car Club is going to be this Saturday. It'd be great to have a big turnout to a less serious, more fun poker atmosphere. If you're unable to make that, I'm constantly playing at Club GG. You can catch me online there. Link in the description below. And now let's go over some hands. So we are going to the eastern side of the state of Florida to the Coconut Creek Seminole Hard Rock Casino. This property moved their poker room to its own private little wing instead of in the middle of the casino floor. Definitely a better spot in my opinion. We buy into the game for $800 before we get into the first hand of note. I'm in early position. I raise to $20 with ace king offsuit. Only the big blind decides to call, so we're heads up to a flop of king queen 4 with 2 spades. Having the ace of spades feels pretty good. Top pair, top kicker, backdoor spades if needed. I continue for $25, trying to build the pot. My opponent only has $200 to $300 in his stack. Would be pretty comfortable to get it in on basically any run out at this point. When my opponent makes the call, the turn is the 6 of spades. Having the ace of spades, not worried about too many made flushes, but even if he does have one, we'll just go for our suck out. I continue betting for $60, but my opponent quickly folds, and we take down the first hand in this Coconut Creek session. Following that, I'm on the button with 7-8 of diamonds. With one limp, I raise to $20. Only the limper decides to call, so we're heads up to a flop of king 9-5 rainbow. Flopping a gut shot, but nothing really else on this board. When my opponent checks to me, he could easily have just a random king, random 9 in range, which he probably wouldn't fold to one bet. So I'm going to take one street, try to realize some equity. I check it back. When the turn is the 10 of diamonds, now we pick up open-ended, get a little bit more equity, more outs. My opponent checks it to me a second time. I now just think it's likely he kind of whiffed his buy language. He's even holding his cards in like a folding motion. And sometimes that could be a reverse tell where he's just going to raise me, but I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. I throw out a bet of $25, and my opponent pretty much snap folds, accidentally exposes ace 4 offsuit. So, did kind of whiff, but I did get a better hand to fold. Feel pretty good about that one. Before I bunch straight out to $10 with 2 limps, I look down at ace jack of clubs. Definitely going to raise this one up. People have been playing pretty passive at this game, so this is basically a premium. I raise to $55, and both players fold, which is pretty good in this property. There is no rake pre, so that's a $22 profit without seeing a flop. Following that, on the cutoff with pocket jacks, after one player limps, I raise to $20. The big blind and the limper call, so we're 3 ways to a flop of 10-8, 8-2 hearts. Hard to get an overpair with jacks, so when I do flop one, I'm definitely going to continue betting. Going for a little bit of protection, I size up to $40, 2/3 pot. Both players quickly fold, and we take down another one. Next interesting hand, we look down at jacks again, this time under the gun, just a raise to $20. The big blind is the only caller, so we're heads up to a king queen 8 board with 2 diamonds. Well, this is one where jacks are not an overpair, so probably not wanting to put a whole lot of money in this one. Don't see my opponent folding a king or a queen all too often, so when he checks it to me, I check it back. Turn is the 10 of clubs, so we pick up some equity. When he checks to me, I think here you can mix between betting or checking. And at a table this passive and tight, I think all better hands are just going to call and all worse hands are just going to fold. So no real reason to bet, I would say. Unless you think that the weakest queens will fold to a bet, but I choose to check this one back. Turn is the 10 of spades, also a bad card. My opponent somehow turned third pair, he made trips and got there, so kind of mad that I didn't choose to bet the turn, but now I think betting river doesn't make any sense at all. When my opponent checks to me, I check it back, and jacks are good. We take down a pot, playing very passive, but still a win. Next hand of note. With one limp, I'm in the big blind with ace 10 offsuit. I raise to $20. Both the limper and the small blind decide to call it, so we are 3 ways to a flop of ace 9 5 2 hearts. I always say that there's some top pair good kickers that I put into my check calling range. On a table this passive and this tight, I don't even think it's unreasonable that either of my opponents could have just check called with ace jack ace queen some of the time. So this is going to be one of those check call type spots. When I check, the later position player puts out a bet of $25. Well, I did not check top pair good kicker to fold, so I think this is a pretty easy call. When the turn is the deuce of clubs, complete brick. If I was ahead on the flop, I'm still ahead. I check it to my opponent, and this time they bet $30. This somewhat sequential betting size leads me to believe that he kind of has a flush draw. Trying to name his own price with a somewhat weak hand. Maybe some of the time he has 9-10 or 6-7, 7-8, but really just feels like hearts here. So I'm going to raise this one for value. Try to get those hearts to put more money in the middle right now while I'm pretty confident I have the best hand. I raise it to $85. And facing this raise, my opponent doesn't take very long before calling. Really hoping for a safe river card. And the 6 of diamonds will definitely complete that. Now, if I do believe my opponent has a flush draw, I think that the best play is to check and let him blast off with his missed hearts. If my opponent has like king, queen of hearts, he's probably not going to check back. He's probably going to throw out a bet himself, but he's definitely not calling a bet. So this is why I choose to check raise turn and then check river. But he just snap checks it back with ace 8. So possibly missed some value with kind of an unorthodox line I took, but we do take down a decent sized pot on this one. Following that, I'm in the small blind. I look down at ace queen offsuit. With a later position limp, I choose to raise to $20. Only the big blind calls, so we're heads up to a flop of queen 8-3 rainbow. Some of the times I'll check call. Top pair, top kicker. This can be one of the times I bet. But I bet small, hoping to get it crying calls by all gut shots, straight draws, 8s, worst queens. I bet $15. But it's too much. My opponent snap folds. We take down another one. Before I'm under the gun with Jack 10 offsuit, raised to $20. Definitely going to widen my range here when players are playing very tight, very passive, and I'm pretty much able to bluff them off the hand if they completely miss. When I make it $20, only the big blind calls, so we are heads up to a flop of ace 8-6 2 spades. Having one spade feels pretty good, but the ace is more important. I have all the best aces in range. I've only shown down premiums, top pairs, pocket jacks, things such as that, so thinking that my image can get a bluff through on this one, I bet $25. My opponent doesn't take too long before folding, and we take down another one with Jack High. At this point, Harry B. Poker sits down at the table, another vlogger, local to the Coconut Creek area, and he opens up for $20. With one call, he clearly comes with the action. I'm on the button with King Jack offsuit. Think this is just a call. A 3-bet would be really light, and Harry's one of the few people that I believe can 4-bet even lighter. So we're pretty happy to play in position against a loose passive table and see what develops. The big blind calls as well, so we're going 4 ways to a flop of King 9 deuce 2 clubs. I actually expected Harry to c-bet this a high percentage of the time and probably just call him down, but he checks to me, the other player checks, it's on me. I'm not going to let this one check through. There's an obvious club draw out there, there's some gut shot straight draws. I don't have one of the best kings ever, but definitely good enough to bet, I would say. So I size up to $60. Definitely want to make the flush draws pay to be able to see the turn card. The big blind thinks for a while before calling, and then the other players get out of the way. He checks dark, so I'm hoping to see a blank turn card where I can bet against small, because he only has about $300 in his stack. But the turn is the Jack of clubs. Really weird card.
Oh my sweet Jesus.
Gives me 2 pair, flush completes. Not really too concerned about queen 10, but it is possible. But if I bet here and my opponent just raise jams me, I pretty much have to just sigh cry call, and I'll pretty much always be behind a flush. So I think this spot functions better as a check and then reevaluate river. It's one of the benefits of playing in position. So I check it back. River card is the 7 of spades. Brings 10-8. Very much kind of discount that. But the 7 is pretty much a brick. When my opponent checks to me, I really don't think he would ever have a flush and check both streets. Or queen 10. I think you have to go for some value on this river when I check turn. So I think I can bet this pretty happily with my top 2 pair. But not thinking he can pay me off with too much. I think the best hand he could ever have is like Jack 9 or 9-7. But besides that, maybe just a single 9 will pay off a $75 bet. So that's what I wager. My opponent shuffles his cards, thinks for a long time. Probably about 30 to 45 seconds. Looks at his cards, pick them up, put them close to the muck, grabs chips, shuffles them again. Finally, he puts the money in. I'm very confident I have the best hand here. Announce 2 pairs, show it proudly, and it is indeed good. I think we got pretty close to max value on this hand, which is a great result.
Please take a moment and like the video. Thank you.
Following that, I'm in middle position. I have queen 6 of hearts. Yes, I'm really winding it up here because I'm able to get away with a lot of stuff at this particular table, and we want to have some looser hands in our range so we're not just seen as a nit. So I raised to $20 from middle position. Only the big blind calls, so we're heads up to a flop of Jack 5-3, 2 spades, 1 heart. This board actually favors a big blind. He's got 5-3, 6-4, 6 deuce. I shouldn't have too much of that. He's got all the sets. So thinking I could take one street to check it back and see if he wants to check to me on the turn, I check back the flop. When the turn is the 10 of hearts, pretty much a dream card, brings me some hearts, somewhat connects the board in a range that I would have. I have all the king queens, I have jack 10s, pocket 10s, ace jack, ace 10, things such as that. So when my opponent checks to me, I'm going to bet here $30. Hopefully get a fold like this table's been running and I can just take it down when I don't have it as well. But my opponent decides to call. Not really happy about that. And the river's the king of clubs. Another card that would connect with my perceived range a lot. I suppose if I had ace king, ace queen, I would play it the same way. Bet when I turn a gut shot and 2 overs and continue barreling when I complete. So thinking that the best hand my opponent can have is a jack or a 10, I think this king would be pretty scary of a card for my opponent. When he checks to me, I decide to throw in the bluff, $70. Hope that my image of only showing down premiums pays off. Opponent looks at his cards before finally tossing them in the middle. That means we win with queen high. Feels pretty good. Following that, I look down at king queen offsuit from under the gun. I only raised to $15, trying to get more people to call, trying to get more action, more money in the middle. So that's why we sized down a little bit with this one. And it somewhat works as the player to my left and the big blind calls. So we're 3 ways to king 5-3, 2 spades. When it's checked to me, this can be one of the times where I check back a top pair good kicker. This table is very passive. I'd like them to catch up, maybe turn a middling pair, maybe turn a spade where they'll feel compelled to call off a bet with like the ace or the queen or king of spades. So I check the flop and it checks through. Turn is the 5 of clubs. Not my favorite, players could have a 5 and just make trips, but I have to start trying to build the pot here a little bit. Hopefully a middling pocket pair, weaker king, some spades will pay me off. So I bet $30, but this is too much. Both players fold and we take down another one. Following that with 2 limps, I'm in the big blind with ace 10 of diamonds. Definitely going to raise this one up, much better than some of the other hands I've been playing. I'll make it $25. Both limpers call, and we get a king queen 6 all spade flop. Nice to flop top pair. Not great that there's all spades out there. So if I was going to check top pair, decent kicker on certain boards, this one would definitely be included by it. There's plenty of made flushes out there, and we definitely don't want to bet all 3 streets with just a top pair. So we're going to check the flop, see what develops. Turn is the king of hearts. Not really a card where I think I can start betting. I think any of my opponents would just check back second pair on this board. Now turn trips. Now they're pretty much not folding, so I think I'm relegated to check this one again. And on this one, the player to my left bets $35. Somewhat annoying spot. I don't think I can fold just yet as played. I've severely under-repped my hand. My opponent could have like queen jack, queen of spades some of the time, maybe pocket 10s with the 10 of spades. Plenty of hands that might play this way that I'm still beating, so I'm going to call the $35. The other player folds, so we are heads up to a river card, which is a complete brick, 3 of hearts. A lead here really doesn't make any sense at all, so I check it to my opponent, and he throws out $125.
Usually you pay double for that kind of action, Cotton.
I mean, the biggest bet we've seen in the session so far. I actually really want to call this, like, desperately. I'd love to bluff catch here, but I just don't see my opponent having a bluff in his range at all. If he has the ability to just turn queen jack, queen of spades into a bluff, then I guess good for him. But, I mean, alarm bells just go off because although the flush is there, the board's paired. Would you really just fire away? I'm not sure. Kind of a difficult spot, but given how the table's been running and how abnormally this bet sizing was and to have 2 streets of betting, I'm just going to give my opponent credit and fold. He would later tell me he flopped a jack-high flush, and I suppose I believe him. Nice hand, sir. Following that, it folds to me in middle position. I have king-jack offsuit. I raised to $20. The button is the only caller, so we're heads up to a flop. Flop is king 9-7 rainbow. We are not going to just check this one back. We're going to bet $25 and just take it down. So we win another small one. Helps claw back a little bit. Before I look down at ace-queen offsuit, raised to $20 from middle position. A late position player calls, and we go heads up to a flop of queen 6-3, 2 hearts. As I've been mixing it up pretty regularly between betting and checking when I flop top pair, this one's going to be a check.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
Not too many cards I'm worried about. If my opponent has a flush draw, he's calling any bet anyway, so it doesn't really matter if we're gonna bet or check on this board. When I check, he checks it back. Turn is the deuce of clubs. Extremely safe card. I don't really expect my opponent to ever have 4-5, but if he does, I mean, he's getting some money. But I bet very small here. Want to get value from middling pocket pairs, maybe a 6, a worse queen, hearts, all kinds of stuff. So a down bet to 15 is going to be the wager. Don't want to just bet and get folds when I have top pair good kicker. River is disastrous. King of Hearts. Literally the exact worst card in the deck. Only card over my queen that can hit and also be a heart. I checked to my opponent and he bets $65. I don't want to just get in the habit of check folding on dicey cards. As my opponent bet almost pot size, I just don't really think he would full polarize with made hearts this way. Like maybe the single ace of hearts would make this bet trying to get folds. Maybe 6-5 or 6-4, something like that would play the same way as well. As this being just a massive scare card, I believe my opponent would use it as a bluff at least some percentage of the time with also complete airs. So I eventually flick in the call and he shows King 5 of spades. So he absolutely owns my soul, gets absolute max value.
Now it's right in the testicles.
Ouch, town population, you, bro.
And I kind of did to myself with the small bet on the turn and even checking back flop. Like this hand is over if I just bet flop. So sometimes when you try to help your opponent catch up a little bit, they catch up a little too much. Which brings me to the final hand of this Coconut Creek session. I raised to $20 from under the gun with King 10 offsuit. Only the button calls, so we're heads up to Ace Queen 10 rainbow. Flopping third pair I don't think is good enough to bet, so I check it to my opponent. He checks it back. Turn is the 7 of spades. When it's on me, I think all better hands are going to call and all worse hands are going to fold. Think even random queens and random aces aren't going to fold to a delayed C bet, so I choose to just check this one back, take my showdown value plus my gut shot to nuts equity. The river is the 9 of diamonds. Really goofy run out, a lot of 2 pairs, a lot of straights, a lot of stuff gets there. So I check to my opponent. Probably going to call just based on how I've played this hand, but he checks it back and I show King 10 and 10s are good.
I feel shocked.
So we take down another small pot. Many small pots on this day all add up as we're into the game for $800, out of the game for $11.10. We're there for only 3 hours, a short session, which is a profit of $103 an hour or 20 big blinds an hour. Yep, this one we're starting a good turnaround. Definitely back on the upswing. The upswing is going to continue at least for next week. My next video coming out, so be on the lookout for that. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next one.